For thousands of years, the galaxy lived under the shadow of fear. Across star systems, from frozen moons to burning desert worlds, there was a name that no one dared to speak too loudly. They were known only as the Predators. They were not the kind of species that came to trade or to share knowledge. They did not come to learn or to build peace. They came only to conquer. The Predators were hunters above all else. Their fleets were endless, their soldiers were brutal, and their technology was far ahead of anything most civilizations could imagine. They struck without warning. A world might see strange lights in the sky one night, and by the next sunrise that world belonged to them. Those who resisted were destroyed. Those who surrendered were enslaved. In every corner of the galaxy, there were whispers that the Predators were unbeatable. The galaxy was vast, and it held many races. Some were strong, some were clever, some were advanced in science and machines, but none of them had been able to stop the Predators. Entire empires had tried. Mighty coalitions had risen, bringing together dozens of alien races to fight. Yet each time the story ended the same. The Predators crushed them. Their enemies became bones on battlefields that stretched from one star to another. Their victories became tales told in terror. To the Predators, it was a game. To the rest of the galaxy, it was a nightmare. There was no defense, no wall high enough, no fleet strong enough, and so many species simply hid. They gave up their pride, bowed their heads, and paid tribute to survive. The galaxy bent the knee, and the Predators smiled. In their arrogance, the Predators believed no one could ever defeat them. They ruled with fire and fear, and in time they began to believe that they were the true masters of the stars. They thought themselves gods higher than all other life. But then there was a whisper, a rumor that moved slowly, passed in secret by those who dared hope. It was a name most of the galaxy had never even heard before: humanity. Humans lived on a blue and green world at the edge of a spiral arm, far from the center of galactic power. They were young compared to most species. Their ships were small, their colonies few, their weapons considered primitive by alien standards. To most observers, they seemed harmless, too weak to matter, too small to make a difference. The Predators noticed them only when they grew bold enough to reach into human space. For the Predators, it was nothing special. Another star, another system, another victim. They expected the same story to repeat as it always did. They would arrive, they would demand surrender, and they would crush whatever little resistance was thrown at them. But humanity was different. The first human ships that met the Predator fleet were tiny in comparison, metal against monsters, fragile against overwhelming force. Still, they did not run. They stood their ground. They fought until their hulls burned and their crews were lost. And though they were destroyed, their bravery was spoken of in whispers that spread across the galaxy. The Predators laughed at the humans. They laughed at their courage, laughed at their spirit, laughed at the very idea that this small species believed it could fight back. Yet something unsettled them. For every ship they burned, another appeared. For every colony they tried to crush, resistance rose. The humans did not kneel. This was not how the story was supposed to go. The galaxy had learned long ago that fighting the Predators was useless. But humans did not seem to understand that rule. They broke it. They refused to play the game that everyone else had lost. And for the first time in ages, the Predators began to wonder if their power truly had no limit. Still, in those early days, the balance was clear. The Predators were strong. Humanity was small. The galaxy watched in silence, certain that the humans would fall just like all the others. No one expected anything different. The story had been written for centuries, but hidden in those first battles, hidden in the fire and the blood, something new was being born. Humanity carried something the Predators had never faced before, something more dangerous than ships or weapons, something that burned in their hearts and pushed them to rise again each time they fell. The Predators could not name it yet. The galaxy could not see it yet. But soon they all would. For now, the Predators believed they were still unbeatable. They looked at Earth and saw just another victim. They looked at humanity and saw only prey. They believed the war would be short, quick, and simple. They were wrong. Because in that moment, as their fleets moved closer to the blue and green world, humanity was preparing to fight a war that would shake the stars. And the galaxy itself was about to learn a truth no one had dared to believe. The truth that no empire, no predator, no so-called god of the stars, was truly unbeatable. And when humanity went to war, the story of the galaxy would change forever. The day the Predators came to Earth's skies was the day the galaxy held its breath. From the oceans to the deserts, from the crowded cities to the quiet villages, every human who looked up saw it. Black shadows stretched across the heavens. Warships, enormous and merciless, entered orbit. They were not explorers. They were not visitors. They came as hunters and they came as conquerors. The first Predator message was simple. A voice deep and cruel thundered across human networks and satellites. It did not offer peace. It did not ask for trade. It offered only two choices, kneel or die. That was the way it had always been. Every other species had chosen. Those who bent the knee lived as slaves. Those who resisted vanished into ash. The leaders of Earth knew the truth. Humanity's weapons, compared to the Predator fleets, were small and weak. Humanity's armies were strong in spirit, but their tanks, their planes, their guns were toys before alien war machines. Logic said surrender. Reason said survival could only come by bowing. That was the way the galaxy had survived until now. But humans were not made that way. Something inside them refused. Pride, anger, hope, it was all mixed together. The decision was not spoken in one voice, yet it was felt across every land and every sea. Humanity would not kneel. The first battles began in orbit. Human satellites blinked with warning as Predator carriers unleashed storms of fire. Earth's defense fleet was small. Only a handful of ships built for exploration and basic defense. Yet they rose to meet the invaders. Small vessels, outnumbered and outgunned, launched missiles and railgun fire into the black. The Predators laughed. Their shields held. Their weapons burned through human metal as if it were paper. Ship after ship fell. Entire crews were lost. For every missile that found a target, 100 beams of plasma answered. The battle was not fair. It was slaughter, and yet something strange happened. The humans did not run. They did not abandon the fight. They fought until their hulls were torn apart. They rammed their dying ships into Predator cruisers. They overloaded their engines to create explosions strong enough to take enemies with them. Even in defeat, they struck back. For the first time in centuries, the Predators felt something they had almost forgotten. Pain. A Predator cruiser, mighty and old, burned in the skies above Earth. Pieces of its shattered hull rained down into the ocean. The sight spread across the planet. Humanity had drawn blood. The galaxy, silent and watching, could not believe it. Billions of eyes from distant worlds turned toward Earth. The whispers began. The humans fought back. The humans destroyed a Predator ship. It was a small victory, almost nothing compared to the size of the Predator fleet, but it was enough to break the myth. The unbeatable enemy could bleed. On the ground, the war became even more brutal. Predator dropships fell through the clouds, landing in forests, deserts, and cities. Towers of flame rose as human soldiers met them. Tanks rolled, aircraft screamed through the sky, and infantry stood shoulder to shoulder with rifles in hand. Against plasma cannons and towering alien warriors, they had little chance. But still, they fought. In one ruined city, a Predator warlord stood among burning buildings, laughing at the human resistance. His armor was black, his claws drenched in blood. He believed it was only a matter of time before the humans broke. Yet even as his army marched, humans crawled out from rubble, firing rockets, setting traps, striking from shadows. The warlord paused for a moment, staring at a group of children who ran with terrified eyes through the ruins. He smiled cruelly. But then from a collapsed building, a single human soldier rose, injured and bleeding. The soldier carried no heavy weapon, no advanced armor, only a single grenade. He pulled the pin, shouted a word the Predator did not understand, and leapt at the monster. The explosion tore through the warlord's armor, and for the first time, the Predator army hesitated. Humanity would throw even its dying breath into the fight. They were not prey. They were something else. The Predators were still winning. Their fleets still burned human cities. Their armies still crushed human lines. But the laughter began to fade. What was supposed to be easy was becoming hard. What was supposed to be quick was dragging into long nights and endless battles. From space to ground, humans refused to kneel. Their leaders sent a single message back to the Predator command ship. We will never surrender. If you want this planet, you will have to kill every last one of us. The Predator commander, watching from his throne-like chair aboard the massive flagship, felt something new creep into his mind. Not fear, not yet, but unease. He looked at the screens showing burning cities and fallen ships. For the first time, he wondered if perhaps the humans were not like the others. Still, his pride drowned the thought. He declared to his crew that Earth would fall within a week. Humanity would be broken like all the rest. His words were full of confidence. But deep in his chest there was a question he dared not speak. What if this time was different? The first contact had become the first blood, and the galaxy, still watching in silence, leaned closer, because something was happening on that little blue world. Something that could change everything. The smoke of Earth's first battles still hung in the sky. Predator ships circled above the planet like vultures, their shadows crawling across the oceans and continents. Cities burned and countless lives were lost. To the galaxy, it looked like another world about to fall. The story seemed written already. Yet in the ashes, humanity began to change. Humans had always been fast learners. When they faced storms, they built stronger ships. When they faced famine, they learned to farm deserts and frozen fields. When they faced enemies on Earth, they learned new ways of war. Now, with the predators pressing on every side, humanity did what it always did. It adapted. The first sign came not from generals or leaders, but from ordinary soldiers and engineers. On the battlefield, humans recovered broken predator weapons. They studied them in basements and secret labs, even in destroyed schools turned into workshops. Where other species saw alien technology as impossible, humans saw it as a puzzle, and piece by piece they began to solve it. A predator plasma rifle, once too heavy to carry, was rewired and modified until a human soldier could fire it with deadly accuracy. Predator armor plating, left on fallen warriors, was cut apart and refitted into shields and barricades. Even the wrecks of enemy ships were stripped clean, their engines and circuits pulled apart by hands desperate for answers. The galaxy had seen species resist before, but none had done this. None had taken the weapons of their hunters and turned them into their own. The predator commanders noticed the change. At first they dismissed it. A single rifle here, a single ambush there. What difference could it make against fleets of thousands? But the humans were not fighting like other species. They did not march in straight lines waiting to be crushed. They hid in forests, in mountains, in ruins. They struck suddenly and then vanished. They fought in the dark, in the smoke, in the mud. Predator soldiers used to easy hunts began to fall into traps. A patrol of warriors would move through a ruined street, laughing at the silence only for the road beneath them to explode. Bridges collapsed under their tanks. Entire convoys disappeared into ambushes. The humans never fought fair. They fought to survive. In space, the story shifted as well. Human fleets had been small and weak, but they grew stronger with each battle. Captured predator technology was welded onto human ships. Missiles were refitted to pierce alien shields. Small human fighters, fast and agile, darted between the massive predator carriers, striking at weak points that the galaxy had thought untouchable. A single human frigate, battered and burning, made history when it disabled a predator battleship by crashing directly into its engines. The explosion lit the skies above Earth, and for days afterward people spoke of the sacrifice as if it were a legend. The message was clear. Humans did not need to match the predators in strength. They only needed to outthink them. The galaxy, watching from the shadows, began to whisper louder. The humans were different. Where others had surrendered, they resisted. Where others had fallen silent, they shouted louder. And slowly, very slowly, the balance of fear began to tilt. The predators, enraged by the resistance, unleashed more power. Cities were erased from the map in storms of fire. Entire regions became wastelands. Yet even then, the humans returned. Families who had lost everything stood beside soldiers on the front lines. Farmers carried rifles. Children carried messages through dangerous streets. Every citizen became a part of the war. One predator commander, known across the stars for his cruelty, landed on Earth expecting a final easy victory. He boasted that he would crush humanity's spirit in one campaign. His fleet descended upon a chain of human colonies, certain of another massacre. But this time, when his ships entered orbit, they were met not with fear but with fire. Hidden railgun platforms, built in secret under mountains, roared to life. Missiles designed from predator tech streaked into the skies. Human ships swarmed like angry hornets, striking faster than the commander had ever seen. His fleet staggered under the attack. He had come to crush prey. Instead, he found himself surrounded. By the end of the battle, his flagship was nothing but drifting wreckage, and his name, once feared, was now remembered only as the first predator commander defeated by humans. The galaxy gasped. Entire worlds that had once whispered in silence now spoke with trembling hope. Could it be possible? Could the predators be stopped? Still, the war was far from over. The predators were vast, endless, a tide of destruction that had rolled across the stars for ages. Humanity had struck back, but at terrible cost. Millions were dead. Cities were gone. The planet was scarred. Yet the humans did not see only the loss. They saw something else. They saw that the predators could be beaten. And in the ashes of war, humanity's leaders made a decision. They would not wait for the next attack. They would not only defend their world, they would take the fight into the stars. For the first time in history, humanity prepared to go on the offensive. The predators, still boasting of their power, had no idea what was coming. They believed humanity was nothing more than a stubborn enemy. They had not yet realized the truth, that this was not resistance. This was the beginning of a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. And humanity, wounded but unbroken, was about to strike harder than anyone thought possible. The war that had begun on Earth did not stay on Earth. Humanity had bled, humanity had burned, but humanity had not broken. Instead, they rose from the ruins stronger than before. Their ships, once small and fragile, now carried stolen alien weapons. Their armies, once scattered and afraid, now moved as one. Humanity had faced the predators on their homeworld and survived. Now they prepared to carry the war into the darkness of space. The first fleets were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They were not built with elegance or beauty. They were built with fury. Human engineers worked day and night, welding predator technology onto human steel. Old cargo haulers were transformed into missile platforms. Civilian ships were armored and armed until they looked like beasts of war. And from the shipyards of Earth rose new warships, huge carriers bristling with railguns and plasma cannons. They were not perfect, but they were deadly. The galaxy watched in disbelief. No species had ever dared to take the fight beyond their own skies. They fought to defend, and they always fell. But the humans were different. They were not content to hide. They were not satisfied with only surviving. They wanted victory. They wanted the predators to feel the same terror they had unleashed on others. The first human counterattack came against a predator outpost orbiting a barren moon. It was meant to be easy prey, a colony stripped of resources, guarded only by a few predator cruisers. For centuries, such outposts had been symbols of predator dominance. But when the humans arrived, the symbol shattered. The human fleet did not creep in slowly. It arrived in force, missiles streaking ahead like fire across the void. The predator cruisers, confident in their strength, rushed to meet them. Yet this time the humans were ready. Small fighters darted between the cruisers, dropping bombs into weak points. Railguns pounded shields until they cracked like glass. The humans struck fast, hard, and without mercy. When the smoke cleared, the predator outpost was gone. The moon skies burned with the wreckage of alien ships, and for the first time the galaxy saw not the predators conquering a world, but the predators running. The news spread like fire. Species that had long accepted their chains whispered in secret. If humans could strike into predator territory, then perhaps there was hope for them all. The legend of humanity began to grow, but legends did not win wars. Battles were brutal and losses were heavy. Every victory was paid in blood. Human fleets clashed with predator armadas across the stars. Some colonies were saved. Others were lost forever. Space itself became a graveyard of burning ships and shattered dreams. The predators fought with rage. They unleashed fleets larger than anything humans had seen. Planets trembled under bombardments. Entire systems were cut off from supplies and starved. Yet the more they pushed, the harder humanity struck back. For every predator fleet that advanced, a human fleet was waiting. For every colony they attacked, humans laid a trap. In the black void of space, the rules of war began to change. The predators were used to strength, to overwhelming force. They believed numbers and firepower would always win. But the humans did not fight their way. They fought with tricks, with traps, with ambushes. One human fleet lured a predator armada into an asteroid belt, where hidden mines detonated in a chain of explosions that tore the invaders apart. Another human strike force slipped behind enemy lines, destroying supply ships and leaving predator armies starving on occupied worlds. The galaxy stared in awe. For the first time in living memory, the predators were not hunting. They were being hunted. Still, the cost was high. Every victory carved scars into humanity. Millions more died. Worlds were burned beyond saving. Families waited for soldiers who never came home. Humanity carried pain like a shadow. But in that pain, their will only hardened. The Predator High Command began to argue. Some declared that humanity must be destroyed at all costs, that every resource must be poured into crushing this stubborn species. Others warned that the humans were unlike any foe they had faced before. But their pride blinded them. They believed still that humanity could not endure forever, and so the war expanded. Battles raged across distant stars. Human fleets pushed into territories that had never known resistance. For the first time, the Predator Empire itself trembled. Their borders, once endless, now cracked under the weight of human fury. In the middle of it all, humanity's message spread. We will not kneel. We will not break. We will fight until the stars themselves fall dark. The galaxy, silent for so long, now began to murmur. Could humanity succeed where all others had failed? Could the predators actually fall? The answer was not yet clear. But one truth was certain. The war was no longer only about Earth. It was no longer only about survival. It had become something greater. It had become a war for the fate of the galaxy itself. And as humanity's fleets moved deeper into the void, one question echoed in the minds of every predator leader. What if the hunters had finally become the hunted? The war had stretched across countless worlds. Stars themselves seemed dimmer, their light fading behind the smoke of burning fleets. For generations, the predators had believed their empire was eternal. They believed no species could ever bring them low. But now their fleets lay scattered, their colonies smoldered, and their enemies whispered of their weakness. Humanity had pushed them to the edge. Yet the predators were not finished. Cornered beasts are the most dangerous. Their high command gathered what remained of their greatest fleets. Thousands of warships, massive and bristling with weapons, converged at a fortress world deep inside their empire. It was a planet of black iron and endless fire, a stronghold where they had broken every rebellion before. If humanity dared to come, the predators promised they would end there. Humanity came. The human fleet was unlike the small ships that had once fought in desperation. Now it stretched like a wall of steel and fire across the void. Carriers launched swarms of fighters. Dreadnoughts carried weapons that mixed human engineering with stolen predator power. Even the smallest ships bore scars of old battles, and every scar was a reminder of why they fought. The galaxy watched in silence. On distant worlds, slaves raised their eyes to the sky, praying for an end to the age of hunters. The humans had come farther than anyone before, but could they truly finish what they had started? Could they destroy the unbeatable? The battle began with thunder. The predator fleet opened fire, filling the void with storms of plasma and light. Human shields flared, hulls burned, ships exploded. But the humans did not break. They advanced through the fire, launching missiles in waves, railguns tearing into enemy cruisers. Fighter wings darted like swarms of hornets, striking at engines, piercing shields, cutting down predator giants one by one. It was not a battle. It was chaos. Entire fleets vanished in moments. Stars were hidden behind the fire of war. Voices filled human comms, calls for help, cries of victory, last words from dying crews. Yet through the noise, one thing was clear. Humanity refused to stop. The Predator High Command watched in disbelief. This was supposed to be the final victory, the crushing of an upstart race. Instead, they saw their mighty fleets falter. They saw human ships pushing deeper, closer to their fortress world. They saw their warriors hesitate, their confidence crumbling. On the ground below, the fortress planet prepared for invasion. Predator soldiers, taller and stronger than any human, filled the iron fields. They carried weapons that had slaughtered millions. They believed no human could stand before them. Then the humans came down. Dropships pierced the skies. Armored soldiers stormed the black iron gates. The ground shook with the roar of tanks and the thunder of railgun fire. The humans did not fight for conquest. They fought for survival, for revenge for every world the predators had burned. The clash was brutal. Predator warriors struck with claws and plasma blades tearing through lines. Humans answered with grenades, with rifles, with courage that refused to die. In the heart of the battlefield, commanders fell on both sides, their blood mixing with the ash of war. The final moment came when the humans reached the Predator Citadel, a tower of black stone and steel that had stood for centuries. Within it sat the Predator Overlord, the master who had declared himself a god of war. His voice had once shaken empires. His armies had once crushed galaxies. Now he waited, furious and desperate. Human soldiers breached the gates. Explosions tore through the walls. The Overlord rose to meet them, taller than any man, his armor gleaming with trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds. His roar echoed across the battlefield. But the humans did not bow. They raised their weapons, their voices steady. The fight was short but furious. The Overlord struck with the power of a beast, but the humans struck with the strength of unity. A soldier from Earth fired the final shot, and the Overlord fell with a cry that shook the walls. The sound spread across the fortress world. The hunters had fallen. Silence followed. Then across the galaxy it broke. Slaves rose in revolt. Chains were shattered. Worlds that had known nothing but fear for centuries cheered into the night sky. The predators who had ruled as gods were no more. Humanity stood among the ruins, bloodied, scarred, but victorious. Their fleets drifted in orbit, battered but alive. Their armies stood on alien soil, broken yet unbowed. They had done what no one believed possible. They had defeated the unbeatable. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of hunters was over. The age of humanity had begun. And as whispers spread across the stars, one truth became legend. They believed no species could defeat them. But then humanity went to war.